when is a good time? What what's a good sprint cadence? And when's a good time? I guess cadence is both. It's like how long should it be and when should it start and end? And when during that time should like demos and stuff be?
Hmm. That's
It's a
a
short
good discussion
question.
prompt. I love
Yeah.
that. Hold on, I'm getting a message I need to reply to real quick, but
Okay.
I like that prompt.
I mean, I think it might be obvious to you why that's the prompt, considering the attendance slash cancellation for today and 2 weeks ago. I I will I will give you the if it's not also already clear, one kind of mind-boggling project in many ways, right? Like it's different and it's uh, sort of bare bones and everything. And demos are on Fridays at I think 2 p.m. my time, and now right now it's 11:30. So you can see why sometimes Dev Roundtable is not the priority.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's understandable. Cody,
Oh,
what's going
Cody
on?
stopped recording.
Got
We'll
yeeted
we'll
into
figure out
outer
some. Hey, he's
space.
gone. We don't need him.
He was fiddling with some stuff, and then he went away entirely.
Yeah. If
Must have
this
pulled the
were
plug.
several years ago, I'd be like, oh, he unplugged his computer.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
He's back.
He's back. Okay, I don't have
I didn't
to.
try. I switched headphones and it was like, "You're done recording. Oh, you're out of here." I was like,
Yeah.
"Are you? Whoa!"
Oh, that's interesting. Because I was joking if this were like several years ago, I'd be, oh, Cody was fiddling around. He unplugged his computer. But now it's like we have wireless internet. I'm not going to say we have wireless power, but we have batteries. So it's not that.
I just made a different headphone
Now,
decision.
now he's frozen.
Heck, am I though?
What's going on over there?
Nothing. What is going on over here?
Who
You need
knows?
more pixels.
Did
I'm only
you
getting a few pixels from you.
did here's a question. Did you surround a bunch of stuff in your apartment with aluminum foil?
I mean, but
Have
only
you
Did you build
only
a
the
big
cautionary
Faraday
amount.
cage
Yeah.
around your whole
have
house?
you created a Faraday cage inadvertently or on purpose?
It's 2025. We've all done that. Like, don't act like I'm weird.
Anyway, Casey, what do you think about this?
Oh man, that's it. That's the puzzle, isn't it? All that stuff.
I mean, it's one of the puzzles.
It all interlocks, right? It all fits together, and I don't think you can answer how long should sprints be without answering every single other question about how you're doing your project management also at the same time.
Yeah.
We're dealing with that right now at my job a little bit, and I you know, not to speak ill of my colleagues who I like, but I don't think we're thinking about it very successfully right now, and I feel like my engineering manager is maybe trying to just answer like specific questions without answering the whole puzzle. Because so my team historically has been pretty isolated, and we work, you know, we had scheduled meetings, but like pretty ad hoc. Like our usage of Jira was very much like that's sort of our to-do list, and we do stuff that's on there sometimes, and we ship it sometimes, and there was no rigid structure. And our team has been sort of absorbed into a larger part of the organization, and there's an effort now to kind of get a bunch of teams all on the same, like doing the same kind of project management structure and cadence and everything. And I fear that we are just changing we're like pulling individual levers without thinking about how they relate to everything else. So like one example is our manager has clicked the like next sprint button on Jira every couple of weeks, every 2 weeks for like as long as we've been there. But it's basically meaningless. Like we don't really
Yeah.
care. We're essentially just doing like I know this word is not used correctly in America, but like Kanban style, basically. It's
Yeah.
like we've got our list of stuff that we're doing and we pull it into the board. And then for some reason, I guess because he likes clicking that button in Jira, sometimes he clicks next sprint.
Yeah.
And so you see like a really easy card that is like in progress, and then it's been on like 10 sprints just because
Yeah.
we just haven't gotten to it. There are
Yeah.
problems with working that way. I personally kind of like that, pretty loosey goosey style of working. However, also I understand that, especially when you're talking about like a large organization, people want more visibility. They want to be able to plan more effectively. They want to understand like what features are coming out at this, and sort of a rough timeline so we can have sales conversations. Like I get that.
Yeah.
That stuff is important. What we're doing right now though is like we've changed one thing, which is now our like Jira board is getting rolled up into a larger report, and there are like director level people sort of frowning and going, "Oh, it looks like you rolled a lot of tickets over this sprint." And like that has started without actually like having any conversations as a team about how we're working.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, guys, you're not getting any information from these charts in Jira right now. We could adjust what we're doing and make the data that we're generating more meaningful to you. But right now, you're not learning anything about us and what's happening by looking at these charts, because we haven't been acting as though anybody cares about those charts. It's the whole
Yeah.
what gets measured gets managed problem. So anyway, sprint cadence, we do 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a totally reasonable default, except my team also has like a pretty long lead time on like things getting out to production. So a pretty easy task might take like 5 or 6 calendar days to go from I clicked I'm doing this in Jira to users can see it now.
Oh yeah.
And again, we can talk about like, should we be doing more of a CI kind of thing? Like, should we CI/CD? Like, should we be shipping faster? Like, those are also parts of that whole management conversation. But now we've got people above us in the organization getting serious about like, it's every 2 weeks, and it's really serious that it's every 2 weeks, and we're doing all this extra stuff. But we haven't adjusted anything else. So it's like, within that 2 weeks, if I'm supposed to, I can't have started a thing before the 2 weeks. It needs to be all within that sprint boundary. Within 2 weeks, I need to click start on a thing and then do it and then get it reviewed and then ship it, and then customers can see it before that 2 week line is crossed. Our current way of doing things means that I can hardly get anything done in that time, according to the like thing that's not going to make anybody frown at our chart in Jira,
Yeah.
because of how we do all that stuff. Like, so it's all part of the same picture. So anyway, 2 weeks, I don't know. It's a meaningless answer.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. It's a lot. I mean, I think you started off uh, with, I mean, the right thing, of course, is it depends, and but it depends, like, because it's not something in and of itself. It is connected to all this, and you can't just say like, yeah, you can't just say like 1 week demo on Wednesdays or whatever, right? Um, you can't just say whatever. Like, you need to say how does this. I mean, even what you were saying about how long it takes stuff to get out, right? Um, and yet, when you were saying about the loosey goosey stuff, like that works just fine. Things change priorities and everything. Um, you're like, if we have time, I want to do this small deal, and it gets pushed down because whatever. But it's like the impedance mismatch, or the impedance mismatch, so it doesn't sound like I'm saying something else. Different spelling of that first word, or the um, the visibility stuff. Like that's where it doesn't really work. Like you can be loosey goosey, but then if you're doing sprints, right, or like doing these boxes at least, um, and then it also becomes, why are you doing it, right? Like I would say, unless you're going really really loosey goosey, you probably do want to do some kind of sprint thing, or whatever. I'll just say like a box deal, so you can take a look and be like, every 2 weeks or every week, we like package this up, and like how much can we get done in a week, in a normal week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of want to always throw that out because it's always like, well, it's estimation, and estimation is hard, partly because the communication is hard and like defining what people want. So like you're estimating one, even if you're really good at estimating, are you estimating the thing that you actually end up doing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which then becomes like, well, are you actually good at estimating, right? Because part of it is knowing, well, all this stuff, right? But like you probably want to be like, we'll have this chunk like every week, every 2 weeks, right? Whatever. 2 weeks sounds good. 1 week always feels a little short, and longer than 2 weeks is like a little long, but whatever. Um, but like, how much can we get done, or how much does get done? And even if it's all like bullshit numbers, or like t-shirt sizes or whatever, like as long as you're consistent on that project or in that team, then it's fine, right? Like if you're just saying like, well, to us a 3 is this, and to somebody else is like, well, that's our 8 or that's our half, doesn't matter, right? As long as this team kind of knows like a 3 stays a 3, it's like going to be a 3 from week to week or month to month or whatever. And if it gets longer, like if the 3 gets bigger or smaller, then that actually says something about the team and how much they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, oh, we have no idea. Three's one of our favorite numbers, so everything is a 3, right? Um, but then, yeah, like if it gets rolled up into other stuff and people are looking and they're like, how come this didn't get done even though you said it was going to get done, or how come, you know,
Yeah,
yeah, it is really tough.
the
Um,
estimating thing is
yeah.
is another that's that's another whole can of worms, because it's like
Well,
suddenly.
yeah. I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I don't like, unless like you have to have that, or else, like, to me, like, what is the sprint for, right? It,
Exactly. Yeah.
unless what you're doing is you're like, you know, epics or whatever, or like you're actually doing some more like milestone or demo driven stuff, and you're like, you know, maybe, I think even then estimate, because you have to be able to say like, what can we reasonably do in 2 weeks, reasonably both sides, like what is going to not kill the team because it's too much, and what is going to not, I guess, kill the project because people are like, you took 2 weeks to do that.
Yeah.
You excuse me.
Well, that's a whole interesting thing. I mean, you guys are in the position of maintaining your relationship with these
Yeah,
clients. Like, I, as a full timer on this team, I have a different relationship with,
yeah,
like, what did you get done in 2 weeks? Like, the result of fluctuations there for me is like,
yeah,
I don't know, maybe somebody hassles me a little bit if it drops a
yeah,
lot, or they don't like
yeah,
what I cooked
uh,
up. And for you guys, it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, now there's like some
yeah,
serious financial
yeah.
risks associated with it.
I mean, I don't want to dismiss what you say, but I do think it's a little more of like a difference in degree rather than kind. Like maybe it's such a big difference in degree that it feels different, but like, because for us maybe it's more immediate, or it's just like, okay, after this statement of work is done, like we're disappointed, we're not going to continue with more. We'll do this ourselves or find somebody else. Um, Whereas for, I'm not going to say you specifically, but like, you know, people who are employed, people like projects get killed because there isn't, progress, right? And like famously, like big, like I think you really only see it with really big stuff, right? Like people don't talk about it in lots of companies, but people will be like, oh, Microsoft decided not to do this thing, or Google dropped this deal. And I mean, at some level, it's all like, well, it wasn't progressing the way we wanted to,
Mm.
right? But that could be like the team, that could be, other market factors, it could be all sorts of stuff. It just reminds me, I was having a meeting with the people on the project I'm on now, and it has a lot to do with performance, database performance, which is partly why I'm looking at SQL so much and talking about it on the channel and suggested it as something to say. And one of the things is like, as you get more and more data, scaling is difficult, and it can be something to do with, you know, the architecture. It can be something to do with the data. It can be something to do with the data modeling, like all sorts of stuff. And there was some talk about like, maybe we need to do some limits. And I'm like, well, I always kind of hate putting limits on like artificially creating limits and doing stuff. But I said something like, but like limits exist and they're going to be enforced one way or the other, right? Like right now, limits are being enforced by 500s and timeouts, right? So like there are much nicer ways to enforce these limits. And it feels like a similar thing. Like it's just with us, it's a lot easier to hit that limit because people are like, we agreed to do this for 3 months and we're not really happy, so I guess we're done.
I
Whereas with other things, it might be like, well, 3 years down the road, we like screw it, we drop this entirely.
Yeah, I think this is a total aside and not related to the topic, but I really like that phrase. Limits exist one way
Yeah,
or another.
yeah,
That's something I've been. This is again total aside, but
yeah.
just real quickly, I've
No,
been.
it's related to all
It's been
this.
a big learning for me as I try to step into like UI design as a skill set.
Yeah,
Um, I have made so many design mistakes since starting this job where I think that things are going to like look one way and I'm like, okay, this is what it's going to be. All right, here's a nice little component. Great. Looks beautiful. People can read it. Lovely. And I ship it and I'm like, nice job on that one.
yeah.
Good design. And then like 3 hours later, I get some analyst who's like, hi, I put a 10,000 character URL into the form and it looks pretty bad now. And I'm like, oh,
It's
God
like,
damn it.
and then you start looking up the RFC. You're like,
Right. Yeah. I was like,
can
can you do that?
URLs,
You
are they
can't do
allowed
that.
to be that long?
Yeah. You
And
can't
then you
do
see it's
that.
like it's actually probably 64K,
Yeah.
and you just nuts.
Right. Yeah. And it just, that's happened so many times since I started this
Yeah,
time. And it's great. I mean, every time it happens, I'm like, oh, you idiot.
yeah,
Oh, okay. All right. Next time, though, I'll
yeah.
remember.
And I think for at least for the two of us, I don't know so much about Cody. It's probably harder to think about that as far as design.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how long is too long for this field, right? How many like associations is too much because, it means you're going to have to start paginating in ways that are very uncomfortable, like paginating part of a page, like the associations part,
Mhm.
and then you probably have to do like, you know, live view or React or Turbo Stream or something, right? Or is it just going to be like, you know, it's fine on the back end, but it's too much information on the page, like all this stuff, right? Whereas, and that's a really important thing that, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm not as good or nearly as good as like what's too much for the design. And I'm more like, what's too much for the database, right?
Mhm.
Like one of the things that we're working on is like, just to get into the SQL stuff specifically, is, what makes a lot of sense is you have cascading deletes, right? And when So like you don't have to manually do cleanup if you do something. And then especially if there's a lot of like the more associations that make sense, the more like parent child like dependent records, the more sense it makes to do cascading deletes. Let the database handle it. And especially if it's like a tree, not just like, okay, there's one thing with like 10 records, 10 different tables that can have records that hang off of it, but then like one of those can have 3 more or something. Like the more is going on, the more it makes sense to do cascading deletes, mm-hmm. right? But then it gets into like, oh, I deleted one row and it took 30, it hit the 30-second transaction timeout, right? And so it's just one of those, like another thing I say a lot, like the limits are going to be enforced one way or the other. Maybe you'll like this, is that like when you're starting off something, like you have to learn the rules, right? But then once you know stuff well, then that's you can like play with the rules or start breaking them, mm-hmm. right? And then it gets into like database stuff is like normalization. You know, sometimes you denormalize on purpose, even though it's kind of a pain in one way, but it's easier to look up stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, because you don't have to join as much.
You got to know what you're going to need to query.
Yeah,
so
and then the same
set it up right.
Yeah, and then the same stuff here is like, you don't want these orphaned records, but if you can't do it live, like you can do it in a background job, still in a transaction, but then that's still hard on the database at some level. So what you do is you start breaking these, and then you're like, I'm going to delete this record that everything still depends on. My querying will make sure that everything disappears. It's like as good as a soft delete, right? But then we have something later that can like at its leisure clean up orphaned records. But like it's the right thing to do, but it's wrong, you know? Like you have to like deal with the realities of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think hold on, it's just been the two of us. Cody's been sort of like nodding. I'm wondering if he has, especially for like the design based stuff, because I know you've run into some interesting things with like maybe TT, maybe unifocal, about like this technically isn't that hard, but like with design we need to make sure like don't like put validations for lengths or make sure that there can only be 5 associated stuff, even though like it's technically a has many and you can do whatever.
I mean, I just kept thinking about the limits, and that like they're everywhere. They're in, and they're always pushed. Like I don't know, like file upload. I thought I had done something really cool with my momentum, with file upload for these training modules. We rolled this new cool feature, and like come to find some customers trying to upload HD movies that were like these little training files. They were like movies. They're huge, and it was like breaking everything because we're trying to do these. The pages were timing out because the file upload didn't happen kind of like asynchronously, and we couldn't transfer the files over 30 seconds. It was like, what are you doing? Like, and that person wants their little thing. They're like, hey, it doesn't work. The page keeps timing out. It's like, yeah, you're uploading like Mission Impossible 4. Like, what are you doing?
Hey, you can upload Mission Impossible 4 as long as it's like,
yeah,
standard definition TV. Like, don't
one of the best ones.
Yeah, they're like you don't think about the ways in which the thing that you're going to use that you've created is going to be stretched. You can't possibly consider all the ways in which someone's going to abuse it.
It happens so fast too. Like you take your time and you make a data model or a page or a form or whatever, and you're like, okay, I've thought about this and I feel good about this, and I think this is pretty reasonable. And you're like imagining like how would I use this? I would use it like
Yeah.
this. That'd be good. And then you give it to a user and they immediately just slam it into the wall as
Yeah.
fast as you can blink. And it's crazy how fast it happens and how off guard I'm caught by it every
Yeah.
single time.
It it also feels sometimes like belt and suspenders in the wrong. I mean, belt and suspenders. People say that as like, I'm just being really careful. I'm like, that's stupid. I mean, trust one. Like, you don't need you
Get a
don't need
better
both,
belt.
right? Like
Maybe your
they're
belt
for
sucks.
different things. Um, and oh my lord, if they're the clip-on suspenders, don't even whatever. But so like it can feel a little weird in that case of like, oh, you can do attachments and like, oh, okay, let me make sure that there's a upper limit, right, of like they can't do something more than 50 megabytes or whatever. But then you're like, do I really need to do this? People are going to be reasonable. I guess the answer is no.
No.
People aren't going to be reasonable. You do need stuff. um, but then you also need to see in cases like that, uh, I guess in cases like that, it's really good. Like, where are you going to do this validation?
Right.
Where are you going to check? Because somebody, you could like stop it from being um, in the database or on your file system. But what you may still do is like, well, now your server still has to deal with the upload
Totally.
of this whole thing before it can be like, no, thank you.
It's catch on the client. You're
Yeah,
like, oh man, what? Like,
yeah,
I'm not even going to let this hit my database for like, you'll have set up a database validation on size and
yeah,
like, it still needs to do the upload.
yeah.
And
And I guess that's actually the belt and suspenders thing that I'm okay with, because like you never know, uh, if you only, that's more like a defense in depth kind of deal, is like if you only do client side stuff, somehow inadvertently or explicitly someone's going to be like, well, I'm just going to craft a result to your craft a query, a request, right? So you need to do it on the server side. But if you only do it on the server side, then every single time people are going to be like shoving in weird shit, and you're like, can I just can we just say, whether it's as simple as like this is a numeric field in the form, no letters, thank you, right, all the way to like, oh, let me check how much you claim this, how the size you claim this file is, right? Because like there's stuff that you can do there too, uh, before I even let you, before I even open the door to the file going to the server. And then I guess with stuff like that, there's so many things where you're like, if it's going to be on AWS, if it's going to be on S3 or whatever, then like you bypass the whole thing. You like basically,
right.
instead of them uploading it to your server and your server uploading it to that, it's like they upload it again, explicitly or not, right? They basically end up, what your app sees is somebody has uploaded something to S3 and here's an S3 URL or link or path or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. I have one more. I'm sorry, one more anecdote
Oh yeah,
about
yeah.
users going hog wild in ways you don't expect. I am responsible for a little like internal analyst tool that they use to kind of feed. It doesn't really, the specifics don't matter, but basically like they had, it's one of those make a web app to replace a spreadsheet sorts of things. Although in this case it was to replace a wiki page that was like a bunch of saved searches that they were using to, they would like, they had these like links to saved searches, and they would load up all these links to review like work that the system had done, to just be like, all right, make sure everything's working correctly, do any adjustments we need to do, that kind of thing. And that workflow was really onerous. And so we made a little internal app that basically is like a really, really lightweight workflow manager kind of thing. And they had this to sort of seed the workflow. The analysts had this wiki page that had a couple of dozen saved searches on it, like, I don't know, on the order of somewhere between like 20 and 50, something like that. And they're like, these are the kinds of searches that we're doing. And I was like, okay, fine. So, you know, it was a 2-person team, me and a back end guy, trying to be real scrappy, do a lot with a little. It's an internal tool. It's not making us money, so we're just like, let's, we don't want to sacrifice too much quality, but we're going to try to get the bare minimum that's going to help these guys do their job, and then iterate on that. And so the index page, the list page at the front of this app that is basically taking the place of that wiki page that's all those links. It's nothing. It's just a UL element basically, and just some text.
For a second, I thought you were making a joke on URL. It's not even it's just a universal locator. And then I remembered that
not even resources.
It's an unordered list.
It's an unordered
this is how
list.
HTML I do.
It is unstyled. It is an unordered list. Bullet points are still there, and the bullet points that designers hate and always remove are still there. It's just links and a little bit of text that I string interpolated out of the database records.
It's perfect.
And I was like, all right, that's probably good enough. It's 20 things. It's not. It's fine. That'll get us there because they're going to spend most of their time working. We shipped this. No exaggeration. The next day, I loaded up prod, and one of the analysts had put 300 of these things in there. He had gone and created 300 new saved searches for this list. And so the front page is just a disaster. And I was just like, oh no, why did you do this to yourself? But I mean, in some sense, that's a success case, right? That's he's finding value in this tool, so he's putting all his shit in there. That's great. Oh man, it's so miserable now to look at this page. But the fact that he spent the time to type all those in to input them is okay, he's investing in this thing. That's a signal to me that we're on the right track with some stuff, and then he's showing me where it needs some attention now. But yeah, I was so shocked when I saw that page because I had been testing locally with 10 records for that index page. And I was like, all right, well, it's not going to win any awards, but it's functional. And then I look at prod and I'm like, oh God. Anyway, I wanted to jump back to the product or the project management stuff a little bit because, Yosef, you said something that I think is so critical, and it's so hard to get people thinking about why are we doing the things that we're doing when it comes to project management stuff. And I think you said something about you just have to answer why are you doing it for each of these little practices. And I see us, my team at work especially, but I've seen it on many teams that I've worked at. In fact, I would say it's more the exception than the rule when you see a team that does have a strong answer to why they're doing all the various practices that they're doing in terms of work management and planning. There's so much cargo culting because there are so many agile thought leaders out there or whatever who are just they get on stage or they write a book in a very confident style, and you're like, yeah, all right, we need to do Fibonacci story points. Sure. And then they're like, we got to do 2-week sprints. Okay, that's what Smarty Kentbeck says, so that's what we're doing. Yeah. And I think it's so critical to answer the why for all of those things. And I see it happening on my team and then the organization that we're part of, especially it's kind of been the case for as long as we've been doing this, but because we were so loosey-goosey, it kind of didn't matter that much. But we would do some of these meetings where the manager would click the next sprint button or whatever. And, I tried to sort of, gently encourage us to talk about that stuff. I was like, hey, I notice every other week we all get together and spend an hour on this activity. Why? Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
What are we getting out of that? Because I feel like I don't understand what value we're getting out of doing this. Crickets. People did not want to talk about why we were doing it. It was just cargo culted in. It's just what we do. It's on the calendar. We just do it. an hour-long meeting for like 15 to 20 developers and analysts
Oh, I didn't
is
realize that.
so much fucking money.
I didn't realize that's how many people were in there. Yeah,
That's such incredible waste, and we are
yeah,
getting nothing out of doing it. And now I see us making those same mistakes again as we, and I want to give credit to my engineering manager. I think he is like catastrophically overworked. I think
well, yeah. I mean, with 15
he's
people,
trying to do at least two jobs. The organization
yeah,
is really not giving him any support. They're only
yeah,
giving him demands. So I don't want to put too much on his shoulders,
yeah,
but I see us for whatever reason, whether it's not a like skill issue on his part. It's really just like the structure of this change in the organization is not allowing him to do a good job. Whether he would be doing a good job if he had the slack in the system to do it or not, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But
yeah.
in the current environment, we're being asked to bring in all of these cargo cult style project management practices, and we don't have an answer to any of the whys except for the one most important why, which is my boss's boss told me I have to.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
this is, I
but like
mean,
the estimating especially is like, why are we estimating? What does it mean? What does a point mean? What does
yeah,
our team have to mean the same thing as another team? We skipped all that shit, and now in meetings we're just getting questions like, what do you think? Is this card a 3? Do you think this is a
yeah,
3? And I'm like, what is 3? What is 3? Why is 3? We
yeah.
gotta answer those before I can give you a meaningful answer to, is this a 3? But
And then
we won't. We're
people are
just
going to be
like,
like, Casey doesn't even know what a 3 is. This,
yeah,
he,
exactly.
he, it's like, you're, when you know math so well, you're like, nah, 3 is not what you think. 3 is confusing. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's so much there. This is so one of the things that like I mentioned before, and you brought up again, is like that bit of like, does 3 on our team need, like, does it need to be the same as someone else's 3? And this is another one of those. Is like, you have to deal with the realities of the situation, um, and what might make sense. Like, this is the same thing as like choosing what tooling to use for a project, or what language to use, or everything. Is like, there might be stuff that makes sense, that is like objectively correct or best or most efficient, but you have to like get away from that and be like, okay, this thing, it should be written in Go, right? But like, we don't use Go for anything else, right? So like, what that means for real is that we have to spin up like new infrastructure, maybe new deployment processes, like all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
new support things. And then we also have to think like, you know, can any of us move off this project? Can new people move on? Can we hire for this? Right. So like, even though it should be that like, oh, let's do it in Python, like everything else we do. Right. Like, it's less efficient, but it's more efficient as the whole system. And so a similar thing with like, I think we've all run into that more, just the analogy, but like with the points is, yeah, right. Like the 5, 10 people, whatever, on this now, what does a 3 mean to us? It's fine, right? But like, then what happens if somebody else joins in and they're, pointing or whatever, or if somebody, you move off to a different team, what if it's being used for someone to like take a look at all this stuff, and they're like, how come your velocity is like 15 per sprint and somebody else's is 40? And it's like, well, have you heard of, I forget the name, but like all this stuff also from the very beginning I didn't mention. What's the that law, which is like, when you start working to the measure, like when you work to the metric or something,
Oh
you're like,
yeah, I don't know what that's called, but like the what gets measured gets
yeah, yeah,
managed
yeah.
thing.
So it's like, yeah, you want us to do 40, we can do 60. We could do 100 per week. Let's that's easy.
That's a number, Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel it feels like a diner waitress like screaming over her shoulder some code. Like you ordered something and you're like, what the hell did you say? So it's like you want 100 and it just screams over like
100.
multiply everything by 10. She's like, oh, easy peasy. But yeah, and the other thing is like, yeah, stuff can be like cargo culted. Stuff can be fine, but it can also just be like adopted as a starting point, you know? Because you're like, oh, we can sit here and decide all these things, or we can be like, I don't know. It's like we do 2 weeks. We do Fibonacci. We shoot for this. We have like sprints, the meetings on Mondays or whatever, and then you see how that works, and then you like refine or iterate. But it has to be like you're listening and questioning, and you're also, if you want to change something, don't change everything at once.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
They'll
think
be
that's
like, this isn't working. Okay, we're doing T-shirt sizes every week. And it's like, that's just two things, so it could be a lot worse. But still,
I feel
I
like a
mean,
good
I've been in stuff where it's also like, how do you file tickets? Who's responsible for that? Like, how much do they do it there? How does it get? I always kind of hate the word groom, but like, how does it be groomed? Like, is grooming and planning together? Blah 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 blah. Like, I hate it all. I mean, it's all important, but I hate it all. Oh, I was also, it just popped in my head. One of the teams that I was on at this client before I was pulled off, and now I'm back. They referred to the all the stuff like the meetings and things as rituals, which always feels
I've heard that a lot.
weird to me. But sometimes with what you're saying, it feels like very apt. Like people have rituals. They don't have like things that they've planned through. They're like, this is our ritual. This is our sort of like spell that we cast every week to like appease the demons or whatever.
Yeah.
To like keep the trolls at bay or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know if it's working as well as you think it is.
Have you seen any trolls around?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all that, a big part of this too, I think is, and I've seen this on consulting gigs a lot, and I feel it right now at my job too. I think a lot of these things, like the project management stuff and the planning stuff, is like they need time to cook, right? Like you make a decision about how you're going to do estimates or how long your sprint is going to be or whatever, and like you need a bunch of those to have happened in the format that you've decided on in order to sort of look back and retrospect clearly and be like, it seems like these are the things that are true about us, about this team doing the work this way. But you have to, like, you can't do that assessment until you've done like a few of them. I don't think, I mean, unless there's something just
Yeah.
like really, really blatantly catastrophic,
Yeah.
like then you can, pull the emergency brake and be like, whoa. But like
Yeah.
smaller changes, like we're going to do estimates this way, we're going to do our release cycle this way, whatever, like a data point of one or I mean, zero even
Yeah.
sometimes is not enough information to draw any useful conclusions from. And the people, like I hate to say it, but like the money guys
Yeah.
are so nervous about stuff like that because making software is really expensive. So understandably, like I'm not saying they're wrong to be nervous about this sort of thing, but like I've felt it all the time on client projects. You wave the green flag, the project starts, and people are nervous right away about how much return on investment they're seeing because they're
Yeah.
investing a lot. And they're like, are these guys conning me? Like, am I getting what
Yeah.
I'm paying for out of this? And it's like immediate that they're worried about that. And
Yeah.
it's like, you just can't know. You can't know the answer.
Yeah.
And if you start pulling all the levers right now because you're nervous right now, you're never going to get anything back.
Yeah.
And I see that happening on, and I mean, the way that you mitigate that as a consultancy is people like Jim hone the very difficult skill of building trust and establishing trust with people,
Yeah.
and then developing a team who also establishes trust, and that trust has to be there. And on this larger reorg thing at my job right now, I don't see any trust. There's no trust. It's just big boss comes in and is like, we're going to do it this way now. I'm looking at the charts 2 minutes after I made that proclamation, and I'm nervous about these. I'm mad about these charts. They're no good. I don't like how these charts look. And we're like, well, what do you want to know, man?
Yeah.
Like, what can you possibly know right now? Nothing. You can't know
Yeah.
anything.
No, I mean, it really is with so much of this is, I can even say like it's an art and not a science, but like even if it's a science, sometimes one of the ingredients, one of the limiting factors, however you want to talk about this, is time. Like you have to see how things take, see how long things take, and like this is part of the trouble, even with you know a shorter than a week for a sprint. It just sounds. I'm like
That's
can't
crazy.
but even a week often
Even a
feels
week.
very stressed and
My
very,
my own weeks are wildly different from one another.
yeah,
This week,
Yeah.
I had 2 cat vet appointments
yeah,
scheduled.
yeah,
That week sucks. Like, I'm not going
yeah,
to ship anything this week.
yeah.
Next
But
week, I don't have anything on the calendar,
yeah,
but it's a holiday.
yeah. But and so that's why like shorter than a week I think is ridiculous. You're not living in the real world anymore. Just a week is also difficult. But then like when you think about it, you have like the 2 week cycle. If you have to try something out for a little bit, like suddenly like time builds up, right? And so I understand the nervousness.
Yeah.
And like we don't have like there's nothing we can do. Like there's a reason biologists do a lot of stuff with like, fruit flies or things that have like ridiculously short generations. Because you can just like fucking, churn through some stuff. You don't have to be like, okay,
You want fruit
we're
flies?
experimenting
Buddy.
on
Have
we're
I got fruit
experimenting on
flies?
elephants now. Elephants and tortoises.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who cares how long the generation takes? It takes like 14 months or longer just for the gestation of an elephant.
I'm going to write
Like,
down my experiment and hope that my great great
yeah.
grandchildren will decide to continue it.
And so, but like, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, you can't do it. You just can't do anything. There was one, just also, just talking about the small stuff and it being moved from sprint to sprint or whatever. Another thing that just enters into here, I kind of mentioned, is like who files tickets and what do they need to do, what do they need to put there. But part of it is also like, where do these tickets live, and who is their audience, right? Because there are things like we've run into this. I think we all have run into this for a lot of things. Like there can be sometimes like one user facing thing that is actually like 5 different technical things to do, right? Like 5 tickets, let alone 5 PRs or whatever.
Yeah.
And like the user facing stuff, like they just need to see that, right? But we need to see all the different things and keep track of that. Or it could be that there's like one, especially if it's a big thing, right? There could be like one technical thing that's gone wrong that like manifests in like 20 different ways, or gets like 50 reports from different users. And people are just like doing that either because they're inundated or they don't understand. And it's like, yeah, it does. Like login is broken. It's going to be broken for every user. You can keep on saying this user can't log in, but it's just one. It's a big problem, but it's one problem, and we're on it. So it's a hard thing to do, and that is also like a fundamental question that kind of doesn't get answered a lot.
Yeah, who's it for?
Including
Who's the
like,
audience? Who's it for?
yeah, and who has access to this stuff, right? Like when you're having to repeat things over and over on like, well, I did all this stuff on GitHub, but now I also have to say it on Slack, and I also have to say it in Jira or whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I
there's
think
a reason to separate it.
the who is it for, the audience problem is another.
Yeah.
That's another growing pain of this reorg that is happening. Is hi.
The lawn guy came.
Hello.
Good timing too, because it's time to wrap this up anyway.
Oh yeah, but yeah. It's. I mean, it's another thing is like we were just barfing whatever we felt like into our Jira tickets. They were basically notes to ourselves, right? What is out there? Oh, what is out there?
Make this suck less. Yeah, that card.
But yeah, exactly. Like we would just write down cards that were like, there a couple of our cards were like one word. It was just like,
yep,
pagination, bam.
Yep,
and it's like
that's a good card.
That's fine. That's a totally fine card if that audience is who you think it is.
Knows what that means.
There's nothing wrong with that, and you can get somebody to come in and be like, "Well, here's how you should write Jira cards," and that's not the right way to write them. And I'm like, "Well, no, that's wrong." Because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. You have to write them with the correct audience in mind. And if that audience suddenly changes, everybody involved needs to internalize that and then adjust their behavior accordingly. If the audience changes, but our behavior doesn't change, or if we're not even given a chance to change our behavior in response to that audience change, then they're going to, like a director is going to look at a Jira ticket that says pagination and be like, what the fuck are those guys doing? I need to get real upset about that team. I'm like, well, come on, man.
Yeah. There's also
time proceeds linearly.
Yeah. Again, with this project, there's like design and back end work and front end work to do. And there's been discussions of like, is that one ticket that gets assigned to different people and like bounces back and forth? Or is it separate tickets, but they are like, there is pretty much like a linear deal, right? And like one is dependent on the other. And like when something is done, is it really done so that people can do it, like do things with it? Or is it just like one phase is done?
These are the questions.
There's no answer. That's the deal. Like there's only questions.
I don't know the answer, but I know that whatever your answer is, it's wrong.
Yeah. Okay, it's not what I was going to say, but I like it. We'll just plop that in overheard, and then we'll wrap there.
Good stuff. Good to see you guys. It's nice
Good
to
to
chat
see
a little
you.
bit.
Always.
See you next time.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye bye.
Farewell.